The new Black Wall Street. Do it right, build wealth, live life, economic empowerment, real tips, insight on the new Black Wall Street. Yeah. It's on the new Black Wall Street. He's your host.
Hey, grand rising to you billionaires. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the new Black Wall Street as we have our feature presentation of Money and Power Show. And it's Black Man Monday. Oh, my goodness. It is Black Man Monday, and we are ready to rock and roll here this morning, man. Thanks so much for joining us, man. I'm your host, ERGJ, your certified financial educator, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises, ERGJ Black Bazaar, and international best-selling author of the book, The Black Billionaires Club. The book that I wrote, guys, is a study of Black wealth. It's a study of the 12 richest Black people in the world today and how they built their wealth. And I just truly believe that if you want to be wealthy, that's a big if, by the way. Because I realize everybody don't want to be rich. Everybody don't want to be wealthy. Everybody don't want to leave an inheritance to their children's children. But if you do, I recommend that you study wealthy people. We can find that book by simply going to the website www.theblackbillionairesclub.com, www.theblackbillionairesclub.com. It is available in English and French for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. You get an ebook and also soft copy in English. You get an ebook and audio book in French, man. Grab your copy today to begin your study towards prosperity. And here's the deal, guys. The premise is simple. If they could do it, all 12, then surely you and I can do it as well. We just have to learn how they did it, and then just implement those things into our life. That's right, man. You have much success. The Black Billionaires Club. Pick up your copy today. Today's episode has been brought to you by ERGJ Black Bazaar, the Afrocentric marketplace, which specializes in Afrocentric home decor, personal care products, and also Black art-inspired gifts. Here at ERGJ Black Bazaar, we've made a pivot or a change or an adjustment for such a time as this. And so we do now feature and offer some CBD hemp products, some electronics, but most importantly, guys, things that help you protect yourself. You got somebody that's graduating, we can still celebrate their graduation. Go and pick you up a graduation sash. Hey, here's the deal, guys. We got these sports masks. This is what you want, man. It's the last mask that you have to buy. It's washable. It's reusable. It's got filters that can be replaced. And so now you can go to the gym and do all that heavy stuff because it's got dual valve ventilation. Man, the sports mask should be in this week. Go ahead and order so we can get that thing out to you as quickly as possible. But we do have replacement filters, fashion masks, all that good stuff, man, right here at ERGJ Black Bazaar, the Afrocentric marketplace. And here, guys, want to check us out at the website by simply going to www.theblackbazaar.com, www.theblackbazaar.com. We want you guys to remember this, that once you shop Black, you never go back. That's right, man. Once you shop Black, you never go back. Here at ERGJ Black Bazaar, www.theblackbazaar.com, www.theblackbazaar.com, man. Let's find out who's here with us this morning, who's joining us early in the morning. That's right, the early bird gets the worm here on the Money and Power Show as we are celebrating the Black man today. That's right, Black Man Monday. And I got a special guest. I can't wait till he get on. He started telling me all this intelligent Black chocolate that's going on today. I just can't wait. Oh, man, I'm super excited. Let's find out who's here, man. Go and let us know who you are, where you connected from. That's right, rep your city. We're broadcasting here across the World Wide Web here in Decatur. That's right, Decatur is where our virtual studio is located. And we are broadcasting across Facebook and also Instagram Live. Facebook and YouTube also live here today. So like and share if you care. Like and share if you care. Also let us know what city, what state, what country. What city, what state, what country. Don't be shy that you might be connected from here tonight. We want to know just how far our reach is. How far are we going out and using this World Wide Web to spread a message? That's right. Financial education free for the nation. All they got to do is come to class. That's what I'm telling you. All you got to do is come to class and you learn, but will you show up? We don't know, but maybe you need to tag somebody. Maybe you need to hit that share button so they know that here's a place where I can go to get some free financial education, man. Queen Vivian is in the house out of Brooklyn, New York. Thanks so much for joining us here today. What's going on, man? Mr. Hurst. Good morning to what it do? What it do, brother? What it do, man? Thanks so much for joining. Miss Glenda Tate Williams in the house showing up as well. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the Money and Power Show, the Black Man Monday. That's right. So here today, we're going to honor the black man. Now, this is what's special about this. I got a black man as a guest. We got a black man that wrote a book that we're about to read in just a second. I am super excited about today as we are honoring the black man. Yes, yes, yes. We got to lift our brothers up. Let them know that they are loved, they are appreciated, that we love what they bring to our community and to our household and to our life. That's what we're going to be doing here today, honoring the black man, past, present, and future, right here today on the Money and Power. So we're going to start by honoring with our political piece. And this is going to come from our brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, who's wrote a book called A Black History Reader. Good morning to you out of King Mountain, North Carolina. Good morning to you out of Columbia, South Kakalaki. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. A Black History Reader. Now, Dr. Claude Anderson is one of the great minds of our day. Black man who writes books and tries his best to help black folk to help themselves, to understand some things as he sees it and he understands. So in this book, he has 101 questions that he said that we have never thought to ask. And today's question that Dr. Claude Anderson is going to talk about, this is just apropos. This is just perfect because we got a black man's going to be able to come in and talk behind this too. Oh my goodness, God, this is how God works. He just sets us up. He sets us up for goodness. Here's the question: why do blacks need communities instead of neighborhoods? Woo! Why do black folk need communities instead of neighborhoods? Let's find out what Dr. Claude Anderson has to say about this question in his book, A Black History Reader, 101 questions that you never thought to ask, here today on Black Man Monday, the Money and Power Show. Let's read. Physical communities and a strong sense of community are essentials for surviving and prospering. Everybody put it down, so survive and prosper. Surviving and prospering in a competitive group-based society. Today across America, blacks have neighborhoods instead of communities. A community is where a group lives, works, learns, competes, and thrives. It is where they store their valuables, their history, their culture, their businesses, their jobs, and functional schools. Black neighborhoods are like buckets with holes in them. They are porous and do not hold in things of value. A neighborhood is dysfunctional, crime-ridden, impoverished, and transitory in nature. As world societies become increasingly more competitive and nationalistic, for the survival of Black America as a group, it must also become competitive. Everybody putting down, so compete. By building, everybody putting down, so build functional communities. When the first European immigrants entered this country, one of the first things they did was build their respective ethnic communities within which they lived, worked, learned, competed, and thrived. As the integration movement of the 1950s emerged, white ethnics became fearful that blacks would move into their small ethnic communities and overwhelm them. So they rallied around their strength, their greatest commonality, which was not ethnicity. It was their skin color. They sought to strengthen themselves against blacks and social integration by abandoning their separate ethnic communities and assimilating into a larger group, the national community of oneness and whiteness. Then, as a national community, they were able to protect themselves from Black Americans' march towards social integration and a colorblind society. Just like European whites surrendered their ethnicity, came together and built a national white community, Black Americans could come together for group strength as a national Black community and cease pursuing social integration. However, to convert neighborhoods into communities and bring back blacks who no longer live in Black neighborhoods, the targeted areas must have certain things. Here's the following are the key elements that a community must have. The following are the key things that a community must have. Number one, support of those who do not live there, but identify with and support the physical community. Number two, an alternative, wholly independent business district that produces goods, services, wealth, jobs, and business opportunities for its own residents and supporters. Number 3, a unifying code of conduct that conditions residents to protect, to respect, to care for, buy from, and support members of their own community. Number 4, a form of governance with public officials or community representatives who advocate for and defend the collective interests of the community once it is established. And most importantly, number 5, a functional Black community must be marked and identified with distinctive signs to denote that it as valuable and closed to destructive activities such as drugs, prostitution, and garbage dumping. Marking a community occurs when towns, buildings, street signs, expressways, airports, parks, and public statues are named to reflect the community residents and their culture. Before the integration process began in the 1950s, Blacks had notable towns and quasi-communities, which, if nurtured instead of destroyed, could have become functional communities. There was Harlem in New York, Black Bottom in Detroit, Watts in Los Angeles, Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, and many more throughout the country. Within those communities, Blacks operated businesses, schools, churches, and social organizations. They stored wealth, cultural artifacts, jobs, history, political capital, business opportunities, spiritual values, middle-class values, and produced Black leaders. Blacks patronized, cared for, and worked with their own people. Jim Crow segregation had a positive side for Blacks. It provided a nurturing place for their quasi-communities and the businesses, culture, and other institutions stored inside. They were not perfect, but these quasi-communities were valuable and were at a midway point in development. De jure laws forced Blacks to have a sense of oneness and an internal cohesiveness. It was during segregation that Black businesses and industries bloomed across the nation. 100 years ago, during Jim Crow segregation, Blacks reportedly owned 10 times more businesses than they own today. Social integration stripped Black communities and removed the physical places where all classes of Blacks could live and work together, whether they were doctors or teachers, bus drivers, business owners, lawyers, or janitors. Today, Blacks do not have the role models next door, business ownership, the jobs those businesses produce for their own people, and they are no longer in control of their own culture because they no longer have communities or a sense of community. In such a state, it is difficult, if not impossible, for Black Americans to communicate, organize, and compete as a team. Everybody put in the comments, oh, team. Racism is a team sport, and competing in a race-based society must be a team effort built around a group's strong self-interest and a need for self-preservation. Unlike Black Americans, non-white ethnic immigrants see the value of coming together as a group and do not pursue the scattering integration process. They know there is strength and camaraderie in numbers. Instead, newly arriving immigrants aggressively seek out their compatriots, old friends and families to form social commercial networks. Their ethnic enclaves become culturally protected markets from which they draw business financing, a skills bank, and a consumer support group. An ethnic enclave or physical community gives a group a primary area in which to aggregate their businesses, cultural products, and employment opportunities. We're going to pick this up tomorrow and finish out question number 14 because it's quite long. But I think we get the point. I think we get where Dr. Claude Anderson is going with his comment, with his answer to this question, why Blacks need communities instead of neighborhoods. And I got a brother that can talk about this too, man, because he is here with us here today. This is my good friend. We don't do a whole lot together, but it's not about always the together. It's about the spirit. And we are some powerful brothers, man, when we get together. That's just what it is, man. Let me introduce you guys here in the Money and Power Show. My good friend, man, the doctor himself, right? Teacher extraordinaire, the educator. This brother writes. He does a whole lot, from a standpoint of increasing the intellect of Black folk. Dr. Aaron Johnson is in the house, man. Let me see if I can bring him in. Good morning to you, King. How you doing today, man?
Hey, good morning. How are you? How is everybody actually on the feed? How you doing?
Man, we are doing absolutely phenomenal, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here today. I know that you have a busy schedule, but you made some time to be with us here today on Black Bear Monday. There's some people who have absolutely no idea who you are. This is their first time seeing you. So if you could just do a quick little introduction, tell us who you are, what you do, why you do what you do and why the heck we should listen to you.
I always say that my life is kind of a windy road. It's I was born and I was in basically almost born into foster care. Like my whole life has been one of hard work and diligence and trying to kind of understand the world that I lived in and how to progress. And going through foster care and the challenges and the traumas of that system in New York, in the 1980s all the way till now, was just a way for me to really try to navigate how to have some sort of success and understand the world that I lived in. I remember growing up having those challenges in them, but also understanding that there's an issue. There are sets of issues that are beyond my control. It felt like. And like I had to figure out a way to get through them. Like there was some contradictions and some hypocrisy that I was learning in school and that I understood, but I couldn't articulate. Sometimes when you're young, you don't have the vocabulary to really articulate the challenges that you see. And that's what kind of really inspired me to get into history and really understand the world that I was living in, so that these issues wouldn't be so foreign to me, so it wouldn't be so confusing to me. But then kind of once I understood a little bit more of the system, it kind of led me to the work that I do today, kind of social justice work, advocacy work, especially for Black and brown people, but primarily Black people, what I mean? People that look like me. And that's just been my thing, education, helping young people. I teach high school, I do guest lecturing in college, I write. I have a little side business, education consultant business, talking about really implicit bias and structural racism and kind of what, not only just informing white educators and other educators about the structures that hinder Black success in white school systems or school systems that are dominated by white people, but also, trying to educate Black people on how they should move in these spaces, to understand and recognize what these spaces actually are. A lot of us really don't. A lot of us have this. We have a collective mind in certain senses, but then super hyper individualistic in other senses. In other senses, so it's a weirdness that we have here. We used to be a collective people, in terms of everybody kind of moving forward in unison, trying to do better and be better. And then we got this kind of like individualistic, pull your bootstraps philosophy that's kind of offered, that Americana, that pull yourself up by your bootstraps and that sort of thing, which is it's false, because if the government acts as your bootstraps, as it did for white people for years and years and years, then it's kind of it's hypocrisy to tell someone that you should pick yourself up by the bootstraps, even though that you're getting so much assistance on the other end, and that all those other people have to fight so hard just to be recognized as human beings. So when Claude Anderson talks about neighborhoods versus community, integration really helped to destroy who we were attempting to be. We took the little resources that we had, but we also took the social agency and our connectivity to one another and really built up strong communities, regardless of the hell that we were facing economically, educationally, and really institutionally. So my story is just, I grew up in the era where it was the vestiges, right? The vestiges of the civil rights movement. My older cousin, who was the cool cousin, that I grew up with, she went to Hampton University, HBCU, and she was an AKA. She was born in 1968. And so she's only 13 years older than me. And she was one of the first generations in our family to have full American citizenship rights. And when we put it in perspective and really understand the journey that the ridiculousness that, that this life has offered Black people here in America, we really start to put, it in the perspective of where we need to go and how we need to be and how we need to think. And we need to start thinking differently. A lot of times we don't understand, the structure that we live in and how to move forward in it. So that's just me, just navigating my world, growing up in that situation and being in 2020 now and seeing how the mistakes of yesteryear pays dividends to today, essentially.
Man,
conversation.
Absolutely, man. Let's catch up on this comment, man. Thanks so much, brother. Aaron, Dr. Aaron's in the house, man. We're gonna talk about the doctor in just a second. I definitely want to get your a little bit more on what your take is from what we read from Dr. Claude Anderson. I know he's a respected author mind of our time. Catch up on his comment. Good morning to you, King Thomas in the house, man. That's right. Survive and prosper. Survive and prosper. That's right. Compete, build. That's right, man. Compete by building functional communities. Right. Good morning to you, brother Frank. Good in the house, man. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Right. Support. Right. Business team. That's right. Good morning to you, King. Loki Slick Saucy in the house, man. Thanks so much for joining us. True. Absolutely. My brother Aaron is in the house, man. Good morning to you, Queen Melanie. Up here, brother, it said compete by building functional communities. What's your take on this comment, on this thought, on what is functional for Black folk?
Well, what's important is that we understand what community is, and understand what culture is. Like, we don't. Again, I believe we fooled ourselves into our version of the American dream is not white people's version of the American dream. We have been living in the American nightmare, and what we don't allow ourselves to do is to really sit back and really understand, well, who are we culturally? How can we bring ourselves to the point of where we can build community? Like, do we even know our neighbors' names anymore? Right? Do we understand? Do we know our neighborhood anymore? I remember growing up and knowing everybody's name on the block. Everybody on the block and on the next block. Like, I barely know people now. You know what I mean? You have to really, like, do we have a sense of community that's really kind of deep seated in us? Are we? Can we express community in different ways? Are we building? A lot of us are going out and getting professional degrees and trying to move out of the neighborhood instead of moving back to the neighborhood in order to make it a community. So a lot of times that outward movement, and those of us who are getting upper level degrees and higher level degrees, we have that illusion of inclusion, and we want to be included in white people's spaces rather than to build our own in many facets, whether it be socially or whether it be economically, business wise. So I think that's a big thing. Do we understand who we are? What community should look like for us? I don't know if we really understand community. I think we've been living in neighborhoods or the hood for so long that the hood mentality has dominated our perspective and our consciousness, and moving forward is not a thing. We allow certain things and elements to exist in our neighborhoods that prevent for community. And I think that's just one thing that we need to recognize. Who are we? What does community look like? And if we're trying to figure out what community looks like for us, who are our elected representation? Are we participating in that representation? And it starts at a low level. It starts at a school level. Are you going to your school board meetings? Have you voted for your school board members? How have you pushed them to create curricula that's going to benefit your children? Not only is it going to instill a kind of a greatness in them, a power in them, but also are they going to be teaching curricula that's going to be beneficial to our kids in a multifaceted way? You know, not just the traditional curricula that has been taught. You know, are they learning financial literacy? If the household is not teaching it, then what is the school? Or what's the benefit of the school? The school is really supposed to be providing for children what the household cannot, and supposed to be doing it in kind of like a structural way. And you're supposed to have a great say in it, being a taxpayer. What are your tax dollars purchasing? What do you get out of your tax dollars? You know, so I think when we start thinking about community, are our hands a part of all of the different sectors that control our lives in the community? Do we have control over those controls? And I don't think for the most part we do. And for the most part, a lot of us are disconnected. I'm talking about our normal average 18-year-old who lives in a community should be as connected to how the school system runs and how their local leadership is represented as the 40-year-old or the 38-year-old, 35-year-old, whatever. Like, everybody, it should be when we say a team, definitely should be a team sport. And we should also have a collective kind of code, which we completely don't. We are off code, and it's crazy how off code we are.
Man, absolutely. Now you just mentioned, you said it's interesting. You said that the 18-year-old should have, the same connection as the 35-year-old. And I would surmise that he actually does, because the 35-year-old ain't much connected either. So
True.
we're just basically we're creating that which we are. So here's my
Right.
question then. As we see the cycle and we see this generational cycles go on and on and on, and we keep creating that which we are, and they keep creating that which they are, what are some things that you would say, in your time and in your study, that could be easy, quick, not easy, but some course corrections, some shifting that can take place in order to become better, so that we can actually create better.
And I think in other communities have baked in ideology. They have a baked in code. And we've heard this in many forms before. You go to Chinatown, there are not a lot of Black people employed there. You go to Little Italy, repeat, right? Black people are some of the most, we have this we are the world mentality, and we consistently have Black people don't even, like, whenever we're talking about our issues, and we pivot to people of color. And we are almost guilted into speaking about marginalized groups across the board instead of centralizing our own issues. And so because we're not really focused on centralizing our own issues and centralizing our own plans, we lack a code. And it's our code, the code that we lack is to understand how important it is for all of us in our neighborhoods to try to create community. And it's unfortunate because a course correction is, and it's funny, I started writing a book about this over the last summer, and I put it down because school was starting and the prep, and my business was formed already, but I was kind of like, trying to make connections. So it's a lot of things that stood in front of the book that I was writing about our code that we need. But really understanding where you live and understanding that you don't have the same opportunities unless you make them, right? You don't have the same opportunities of others unless you make them. You don't have the same connections of others unless you make them. And the code that we have to have is like, I'm going to recognize that I'm treated like other Black people, no matter what class I'm in, no matter what education status I have. I'm going to have a similar treatment. People are going to treat me similarly in the system as other people that look like me. So it would be beneficial for me to start dealing with people that look like me in a better way, and kind of create an economic system that's almost kind of like in-house, right? Our money turning over in our community. Look at our communities for a second and look at the classic strip mall. You have the Chinese food restaurant, the liquor store, you have the beauty spot, and then you have the commercial businesses. So you'll have those mom and pop stores that are not owned by the moms and pops that look like us, the Black moms and pops. They're Asian and other mom and pops, and they're taking that money out of the community and leaving and going to put it in their own community after they've taken the money out of our hands that we happily give them our money. And then we have the other corporate type, Pizza Hut and Walmart and all these big time corporate entities that also take the money out of the community and into their coffers in other places. We have no sense of community in such a way that we freely give our money to everyone else. Nobody does that. Nobody allows for Black people to set up shop in their neighborhoods. Nobody even values our culture. We buy Chinese food, but we can't open up a soul food restaurant in Chinatown. And so we have such a disdain for ourselves, whether it be overt or whether it be underlying. We have such an implicit disdain for ourselves, and people have an explicit and implicit bias against us. So it makes our journey really, really difficult because we have to love self before we can create. We have to love self before we can create community. And if we have that lack of love, that means we have a lack of trust. If we have a lack of trust, that means we have a lack of wanting to even build with one another. Why would I build with you if I don't love me? If I don't even like myself, I have a self-hate, then how am I going to build with you if I don't like you? I can't love me, so I definitely can't like you. I'm competing with you instead of actually teaming with you. So we have a lot of things to work on, whether it be internal. It's got, we have, it's not just economics. We have a real internal issue where we lack a code to want to be there for each other economically, want to grow our community. I think a lot of us are interested in the neighborhood. We like to perpetuate it. Why? Some of us are trying to escape it and escape to other communities, and others, they have no wanting for the neighborhood to be a community, because that means that they can continue to be irresponsible. So that lack of responsibility, that lack of, it's hard work when you're trying to build for your kids and you're trying to build for generations. And if you are starting, if you're the foundation, you got to put in that work, and you may not reap the benefits. Your kids or your grandkids may have the benefit that you have created for them. So a lot of us are, we like recklessness. We lack of responsibility. We like hood or neighborhood, and and sometimes community just isn't the thing that we want, because community means code. Community means work, and that's going to take work. So.
Well, I like what you just said, man. I got a couple questions that came out of what you just said. When I found, and you told me to be, I found that it seems like all of our greats, our heroes, our real role models, all of our intellectuals. I've found that it seems like as they get older, they get wiser, their conversation changes.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from a victim mentality to a more, okay, let's stop talking about them, let's talk about us.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed to be a cycle too, because as we're younger, it's always seemed to be someone else that's doing something to us, and then eventually we mature, like, no, I mean, they might be doing something, but it's more important about what I'm doing to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about this change in conversation, because I found, and I've said this before, you probably heard me say this before, can we stop talking about white supremacy and talk about Black power? Can we start talking about Black power or anything in that range, so we can focus on the strengths that we have to build us up? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's phenomenal. I think there's a piece of that. I think that needs to be because I think what happens is some people, when they're talking about white supremacist ideology, they use it as a crutch. They talk about it and then they use it as a crutch to not move forward. I think that some people grow up and they don't understand what it is, and they don't recognize it because they have been so baptized in it. So it's a nuance when we have that conversation, because yes, we do not need to talk about it in terms of allowing it to oppress and push us down to where it keeps us from moving to where we need to move. Understanding that it's there, like people who are watching your show and people who are participating in your show, they may very well understand it very deeply, and they understand their need to move forward. And people who don't have any relatives or parents or have any knowledge to really understand the structure that has historically kind of, I don't want to say disabled, but historically has placed impediments or challenges in front of us. If they don't understand that deeply, they're constantly questioning how come they don't have the same, it's not the same for them as it is for their white counterpart. So I think it's just understanding the system that you're in, and once you do understand it in the system that you're in, how do you move forward? And so understanding the power of the Black dollar, which is, it's not as profound as people like to say, in terms of when they say that we have like $1.5 trillion of buying power. Because a lot of times the measurement and the metrics that they're measuring that is really about Black salary, and not really talking about Black expenses and the neighborhoods that they live in and things of that nature. So that's a little, I won't get lost in the weeds of that. I think that it has become super important for us to understand that there is power and agency in the community. We have people that are skilled in a lot of different things that can help us to build and within our community, but also that's going to require trust. And if you hate yourself and you don't have a deep kind of love for self, then it's going to be hard for you to trust someone that looks like you in order for you to build. So I think it all kind of goes together, but we just can't lean on white supremacist ideology as the crutch that's stopping me. We have to recognize that this is a thing that we need to defeat, and we have to figure out ways to get over and through it, and use our agency and our power in a way to move forward. I think you can't have one without the other. You just can't lean on the thing and think that somehow that they can impair you from being powerful. You know, I always tell people, I was able to go to school and do things and become successful in my life because I believe because of the mother who adopted me, right? You know, and because everybody tries to use, you know, certain success stories. I'm like, well, if he made it, how come you didn't make it? Like, but if my story cannot be easily reproduced, then there's a structural problem. And then we have to figure out how to navigate those structural problems. So again, you're right. We need to start leaning on talking about Black power and about what we can do ourselves. However, if we are, like you said in the beginning, we're living in neighborhoods. How do we have power when we have a neighborhood mentality and we don't have a community mentality? And when we are lost in terms of understanding basic economics. You know, a lot of times we try to buy our humanity. We want to demonstrate our humanity by the things that we can purchase because of our low self-esteem, because of the system that we're in. We have to build ourselves up in the family, in the community that we are struggling to have. We have to understand our greatness, multifaceted, right? Our greatness from the past and our greatness right now. We have to hold that. Our kids have to walk through they have to walk out of their houses with that feeling. But remember, if we have to we have to kind of pay attention to the system that's out there as well. Our kids are going out of our houses, no matter if we're empowering them or not. They're going into a system that has 85 to 90% white female teachers. If we're not educating our kids ourselves, they're going into systems that perpetuate white supremacist ideology. So even if you are giving your kids a background in Black power, they are being conditioned in the crucible of whiteness. They are being conditioned in a cauldron of whiteness, if you will. So it takes a lot for us to still re-educate and recondition our kids about where they should go, and have them be critical thinkers and have them really thinking about, I always look at the Ballad of the Bullet when I show my kids that in African American studies, and how Malcolm X said, basically, we have to stop allowing for some certain things to impede our progress. We have to stop allowing for different titles and labels to impede our progress and start thinking Black first. You know what I mean? Think about our uplift and our empowerment first. So that leans on what you were really kind of asking me about Black power. But we are not walking out of our house thinking that. We're not thinking our Blackness first and how powerful we have been. That's why we are still here. We either are ignorant to that, or we're allowing for that system that has been perfected, that is institutional, to help to control our outcomes. So it's multifaceted and nuanced. It's hard to just say either or, ignore white supremacist ideology and embrace black power. Yes, we should do that. But to ignore that is very, very difficult because it's being reinforced institutionally, broadly.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What I meant by that reinforcement, right? Reinforcement. And here's my question, man. I know we can go on forever, but you got these two titles, these two letters, doctor, in front of your name.
Right.
And also, talk us a little bit about what this doctor, what that really represents. But then also talk us a little about, you mentioned, reinforcement and actually coming back in the home and things like that, or the neighborhood or community. Man, what have you seen as it relates to this time right now with COVID-19, forcing people back into the homes to actually give them an opportunity to reestablish and build? I think. I mean, this is a very interesting time, I would say. But talk a little about what your take is on what has been forced upon all people, but we've really focused on black folk, and some things that we could be using this time for, or that we are using this time for, or whatever that you see across the land.
I think people should be using this time to really, really, whatever skill set that they have, master that skill set and try to monetize that skill set. I was impressed by seeing a lot of people that I was connected to on Facebook, or businesses that I purchased clothes or whatever from. They immediately started making masks, and they would like sell them. And I said, look, somebody had said to me, she was making masks, and she was getting a lot of orders, and she's like, I feel so bad that I'm making money, and this is our black issue. I feel so bad making money in this time period, I'm making these masks and people need them. I'm like, look, you live in a capitalistic society, and as we are the worldish as we would love to be, people don't care. People don't operate that way. It's like sometimes we're the only ones who are operating in that way, where our arms are always open to embrace people, even though we get them cut off at every turn. So it was pretty interesting that she kind of like got through that original kind of not fear, but like kind of anguish of making a profit during this time period, and she just started making those masks and doing her thing. And I just love that. I love that, old school, when I was growing up, there was always black folks making money in multiple ways. They had 9-to-5s, but they were doing, my wife's uncle like he owned his own mechanic shop, but he had a pool cleaning business. He had another, he was servicing oil burners and boilers in people's homes. Like, he was doing multiple little things outside of his mechanic shop that he owned. And it was like, that's the kind of black men that I grew up with seeing. They always had these different skill sets. So I'm seeing that certain people, it seems as though that they have, these different skill sets that they're kind of utilizing them. I thought that was kind of cool. And I think that if during this time period, if you do have more time, if you do have more opportunities, then I think it's super important for you to use that. This is not a competition of being productive, but I think this is an opportunity for people to utilize that, that the time that we have to do as much as they can. So if you can establish a business, if you can establish an e-commerce business, if you can partner with someone, especially if your lives have changed economically, then definitely look to do that. I think COVID-19 has taught us that there is no safety net. I think it's taught us that America has a lot of issues. America is if you think about the CARES Act and what was passed and stimulus, is really kind of like taking care of corporate America first. And that's what America seems like is interested in, big business. Those people who have those seats in Congress, and those seats in the Senate, and those seats in politics, those upper echelon politicians are beholden to the corporate, apparatus. And if you haven't understood that, if you don't see that's what matters to them more than you, then you're going to be in a quagmire, and further in a quagmire. So I think this is going to it should teach us to be a little bit more innovative, have some ingenuity, and have some hustle. I think this time period, and it's also shown me that certain students that I have that were struggling in school, having everybody home is not necessarily the best thing. Sometimes the coming to school is their escape. Sometimes going to a good school with teachers that give a rat's behind about them is an escape, and it's that their only time to really, really get away from the hell that is home. So as much as you would think that being home would give kids an opportunity to get on code, and their parents to give them some code, sometimes it just kind of furthers dysfunction, and sometimes it's kind of the worst place for them to be. Unfortunately, when you have dysfunctional homes. So that's something I was thinking about lately, because some of my kids are struggling when we're doing distance learning. I'm doing distance teaching, and we're doing distance learning, and some of our kids are struggling because maybe their parents are not, even though they're home, they're not making them do whatever they need to do. So you're like, wait a minute, if you're not a quote unquote essential worker, you're home. Shouldn't your kids be doing like every single assignment that I'm posting? Shouldn't they be attending my virtual Google Hangout or Zoom? So that's one of the issues. And I think you asked about the doctor. That was a long journey. I always knew for a long time that I wanted to become an educator or an attorney. And I remember growing up and not having a lot of Black teachers. And especially, I had no Black male teacher until my first university, I think my sophomore year. I had a Black male teacher teaching American history. And throughout my entire career, in the 5 universities that I've attended and graduated from, I had one Black male professor. And I always thought that. So when I was younger, young, like maybe 12 years, no, maybe, yeah, about 12 years old, I said I wanted to be a teacher. And I wanted to, and when I became a teacher, I wanted to get my doctorate because I know that's the highest level of, they call it the terminal degree. So my doctorate is in education. My first 3 degrees are in history. My 4th time in school, I have a postgraduate certificate in education leadership. And my doctorate is in education and administration supervision. And my study was on implicit bias and structural racism in Long Island, New York high schools.
Man, I want to come back to what you said, man. Thanks so much, man. Dr. Aaron D. Johnson in the house. I don't think that, you know, especially as a teacher, and now you talk about, man, you're not seeing a Black teacher, man. Let's talk about the impact of not seeing your own teacher self. And you said that school is an escape sometimes from the hell at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's scary because you would think some of the inadequate schools that we have, we wouldn't really, you're like, these kids are in these schools that aren't servicing them. But in certain schools, because all schools, I can't characterize all schools as such, but in certain schools, I have a lot of students over a lot of years tell me what was going on in the household. And when they came to school, that was kind of a world that was, you know, because I'm real with my kids. So I'm like, when I say I'm real, I'm 100% me at all times. You know, within the law, I can't be too crazy, but my kids, they know, you know, if you're connected to me on social media and my kids chiming in on some of my posts or whatever, they always recognize whether I had them 14 years ago and they're fully grown, they're like 30 years old, or whether I had them, you know, last year, or, you know, they graduated. They always say, you know, Johnson is real. Johnson, you know, he gave me some tools. Like I do real talk with them because I want them to understand the world beyond their dysfunction. And I always tell them that, you know, today, you know, is today. Your tomorrow could be very different if you approach this thing correctly. So it could be the escape from hell, from the hell at home. You know, a lot of parents, they weren't ready to be parents, and instead of improving upon that when they weren't ready in the first place, they continue the dysfunction, and our kids are left in the lurch because of that, unfortunately. So school can be an escape for them. And even if they're in a poor school, like it could be an escape for them. So think about this institutionally, and this is also something that perpetuates the problem. If less than 2% of the teachers across the United States in schools, public schools across the United States look like me, less than 2%. And I always say it like this: if you think, and again, I don't harp on white supremacy as a thing that stopped me because I was able to navigate it. I'm saying, however, it is a tricky monster. If you have snatched our Black men out of the home in the 1980s and that prison, schools to prison pipeline is one thing, but when you have the prison industrial complex, right, that really had swallowed our Black men whole, right, snatching them out of homes for low-level drug offenses during the Rockefeller drug years in New York, and those, you know, the crimes of, you know, of being a drug addict, or you know, having recreational drugs, weed. People get mandatory minimum sentences, 10, 15, 20 years for nonsense, right? Because even if they did have a drug issue, isn't that a public health concern? When they're slicing Black people out of the community, Black men, and then our women who have always been strong have to then be the mother and the father. They're going to work multiple jobs, or some of them, unfortunately, during the 80s, the crack era hit, had them addicted to drugs. So men are in prison. Women get caught out there working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, or they get caught out there and become addicted. Our kids are left to raise themselves, and they're going into institutions that didn't centralize them because they don't have these faces that look like me in these institutions. How are our neighborhoods ever going to turn into a community when there's a full court press on how to make sure that we don't? So I think when I went into teaching, I always thought it was important for me to provide a counterbalance for our kids who are dealing with that. I've had kids who their fathers are in prison and moms are recovering, or moms are working multiple jobs, and grandparents are at home helping to raise them. It is a struggle. It's a fight, a fight for functionality. So, but it's been especially dastardly to our people. And we have to figure out, like, the things that are shortcomings to us, we have to figure out how to make them weapons for us. I appreciated my mother. My mother adopted 3 kids when she had her mother come to help her raise us. But my mom used to hustle, but she was always there. But she hustled for the greater good of us. And she was tough, always tough, but in the right way, very balanced.
Man, you said the fight for functionality. This is good stuff, man. Now, obviously, with you being a black man, me being a black man, and then talking about, the theft and the stealing and the pulling out of the black men in our homes and in our communities. There's some that don't get caught up in that trap.
Right.
There's some that got caught up in it, but they can recover.
Yep.
Right. So here on Black Man Monday, man, I want you to take some time to really speak to the black man.
Right.
That no matter where he may be at the top of the food chain, at the bottom of the food chain. He may be recovering. He may hear this for the first time, and it inspires him. As you see 2 black men having intellectual conversation and caring about our community and our people. What are some thoughts, some words that you, as an educator, as an orator, as a thinking man, you have to say to the black man here today?
Raise strong children. And I lately I've been, I've had to really evaluate how I was raising my kids, because I'm very strong. I'm old school to a degree, and I'm trying not to be so old school to where I make them look at me like daddy's crazy. I try to have balance, but raise strong children. I ask a lot of questions of my kids when we're doing homework. I'm here regardless. I've worked 2 jobs most of my adult life, and I do day school, and I do a couple of classes night school, and I do my other little hustles. But I always sit and do homework with them. When my wife was taking classes, I'm sitting doing homework with them. I talk to them. I have that time with them. And I want to make sure that they understand these lessons that I'm trying to teach. And so we have to raise our children, strong children. And you kind of have to figure out, well, what does strong mean? You know what I mean? Consciously strong, or I should say cognitively strong. Strong in understanding who they are, strong in understanding where they want to go, strong in understanding that nobody can make them weak. Nobody can put in their brain that they're less than or that they can't succeed. We have to be the examples that that we want to see in a future community. We have to make sure that our kids can walk around and be proud that their dad, whether their dad is a garbage man or their dad is a doctor, that they can be proud of the hard work that their dad does. Teaching that hard work, it's weird. I remember, they used to say work smarter, not harder, but sometimes it's just important just to grind things out and work hard too. Sometimes it's important for you to just put, really, really show your kids that I'm hustling out there. I'm working out there. I'm hustling in the right way, right? You can't blame the world. You can analyze the world. You can show them what the world is, and then show them how to navigate. And I think understanding as a black man, I always understood that, there's something fundamentally wrong with this country, but that doesn't mean that I have to live according to the script that they gave me, right? I can ad lib that script. I can rewrite that script. You know what I mean? Once they put it in my hands, I can start erasing lines, and if we going live, then I'm going to say the things that I want to say. It's like almost having a live show or a play. You can give me that script all day long, but it's going to be my mastery of that script and how I choose to change it in order for this thing to be a successful play, or successful in the way that I think it's going to be successful. I'm going to take it into my own hands, let my own talents kind of show out. And I think what we need to, as Black men, demonstrate that there are more Black men than the ones that we see on TV, right? There are more versions of us than that are out there being projected on television. Our kids have to look at us as being real. Black men have been given to the world, in very, very small doses, and people are improperly educated about who we are. Our children, unfortunately, fall into that trap. We have to be the standard, and we have to show them. We have to help them, even if things are beyond our grasp with their work. A lot of times we do that. I'm doing homework with my kids, and I'm like, why are they doing it this way? And then even though I get frustrated, I'm like, all right, y'all doing it a completely different way than what I've ever done it. So I'm going to learn your way, and then I'm going to teach you your way. Then I'm going to teach you my way, and you'll learn how to do it multiple ways. I used to read to my kids every single day, every single night. Now they're at the age where they read to each other before they go to bed, my 6-year-old or my 10-year-old. Reading is super important. If your kids are not being sat down and disciplined with reading, no, you have reading time. No, you're not going to get on the video game during the year. What's weird is that because this is the end of the year and we're in this space, we allow our kids, after they're done with their work, they do extra math after they're done with their work, and they do extra reading. Then we let them play a little bit of their video games, only because we know they can't go play with their friends, in the way that they used to. But we didn't budge on that. No, during the week you don't play video games. We read. So discipline. We don't just sit here and read all day long, but discipline. They saw me sitting up at this table for 13 straight hours working on my dissertation one day, working on corrections and edits. They saw me for years reading, researching, writing my dissertation. By example, they see their mother doing her work and all of her work that she does. When she was in school, she's about to graduate with a degree. So they watched this. And then they also saw me go out and work another job. They saw me work a night job where I was doing cleanup, So it's like, wait, my daddy has multiple. At that time, I had like three college degrees, but I was going up and I was doing some office cleanup because I just wanted extra money to put into our retirement, extra money to put into our bank account at the time where I didn't formulate my business. So they saw me busting my ass physically, but they also saw me in here reading and writing, and they saw me speaking. When I speak to people and people listen, my kids are always amazed by that. They always they say, "Daddy, that was cool. You were giving a speech," or "Daddy, that was cool." That they always talk about that. But discipline becomes super important for our kids. They see us emotional out here all the time because we're always being challenged. And we're always being challenged in a way that takes us outside of our character and gets us into this emotional response. We have to sit back, evaluate, and we have to make sure that we are showing them discipline, whether it's going to be discipline in the way we work, discipline in the way we educate ourselves, discipline in our lives, period. And I think that's really super important these days, because our kids, unfortunately, are being raised a lot by single parent households, single moms, and moms have a special part of our kids' lives. But a large part of that is that emotional connection, which are teaching some of our men to be overly emotional. And it's not a problem being emotional. You need that side of you, but that should not lead. That shouldn't take the lead. That's a part of us that needs to be there. We are human beings, but we need to be disciplined in the way in which we move forward and how we do things. So I could talk to you about this stuff all day long, but in a nutshell, that's what I think it is. Our Black men, we need to stand up and be men. Stand up in the community, no matter what your orientation is, no matter who you are personally in life. You still need to stand up and be a man. and take the collective responsibility of your community. And that means sometimes challenging the kids in the street who are talking reckless and crazy in front of your door. That means when you walk into a school and you see crazy, you check kids. I check kids on. Look, I'm a different breed, but I'm also big. So I'm just gonna put that out there for folks who don't know. I'm 6'7", 250 pounds. I'm a large man. I don't fear our kids. Some of our people do. So when I go into spaces, I'm not afraid to challenge them. Challenge them for righteousness, though. I don't challenge them just to be annoying. I challenge them to do the right thing, always.
Man, do the right thing. I heard so much in that, man, here on Black Man Monday. In the comments below, for those that are joining us here live, go and let us know why you love and appreciate the black man, why you love and appreciate the black man, why the black man is so important to your life, why the black man is so important to our community as we honor the black man here today. Dr. Aaron, man, it's been a long time, brother, man. You know, we got more to chop it up about, man, because
yeah, we do.
Today, the conversation that we have, it changes the way that we think. And as we continue to drop these seeds of thought, we begin to change the way that people act and speak and change their life. And as they may absorb just a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, we start to see the change that we like to see in our community by first us being those models, us saying, man, I'm going to walk it out. And then as we walk it out, well, now we're going to teach, right? We're going to teach and allow you to see what it looks like. And I believe as our people see what it looks like, as our people come to class and learn, then they can absorb, you know, these different areas, no matter what it is. Like, I'm in a different area than you are. I'm going to learn from you. Obviously, I'm in finance. I'm in money. Hey, learn from me. And that's
right. That's what I say. Likewise, it has to happen multiple ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, catch up with these comments, man. We'll begin to close this show out. Again, everybody that's here as well, man, show your appreciation for Dr. Aaron Johnson coming here with us here today and sharing his vast resources of knowledge and wisdom with us here today. Man, reading so important. We got a couple of educators in here, man. She's an educator. There's absolutely no video games until the weekend. I like that you said that as a parent, what you allow. I love that. Here's what we're going to allow. As long as y'all up under our roof, here's what we allow. Man, that's big time, prime time, all time, good time. That's right, man. Black Man Monday is the bomb. Thanks so much, Miss Melanie Peters, man. This is awesome. Miss Queen Kathy Nicole, man. I check kids also, but I'm not 6'7". Powerful. So Logan Slick Saucy out of Columbia. Thanks so much, man. Yes, it is, Miss Peters. Man, the black man is innovative. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Miss Queen, Miss Golden. Teach our children to take correct action. Their action and mindset is important from Queen Jennifer. Queen Marilyn, come on here, sis. Absolute Queen Vivian, because the black man will find a way for growth for his people one way or another. Queen Sanrica, man, the black man is the structure. And the stronger the structure, the stronger the unit. Ooh, he's the structure. The stronger the structure, the stronger the unit, man. Discipline is needed for our children. Well, brother Aaron, man, again, I want to say thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here today on the Money and Power Show with our feature Black Man Monday. All of my brothers out there, again, it's not the sisters, y'all got Wednesday, but all of our brothers out here, man, you know what I'm saying? We dap it up, man. We say power to the people. We say we appreciate you, man. Know that you are needed. Know that you are important. Know that we need you, brother, to step up and be a man. Not the old sense of be a man. No. Represent what you should represent and show the way so that not only you, as you are that model, but as those that follow you, because there are people following you. Here's what I want you to understand, black man. There are people who are following you. The question is, where are you leading them? The question is, where are you leading them? Are you leading them to righteousness or recklessness? And that's the code that we're talking about. That's what we really need to take into consideration. Where are we leading the people who are following us? That could be the young bucks, the young girls, those that's attracted to you, all that stuff. People are following you. Where are you leading them? Man, brother Aaron, you got any last words for the peeps before we close this show out?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you having me on. And, you know, any networks that anyone on here is connected to. I mean, that just word is consistent. The reading and the discipline are super important. It's fundamental for our kids and our kids' growth. And if we can establish that for them early and establish a kind of a love for learning and a love for reading early, it kind of helps to set up their success later on. Because when you're behind and you don't have those foundations, work becomes arduous and becomes difficult, frustrating, and then that allows people to act out in school. I mean, when they're not interested, you're not interested because you're not really conditioned into being interested. When you're conditioned to do whatever it is you want, so just whatever networks you're connected to, I always tell people, get those young parents, if they can't do anything else but provide for 15 to 20 minutes of reading extra every day from the time that their child is young to the, when they're going into elementary and then middle school, they just have to provide that foundation. It makes learning, it's like the building blocks of learning. It could really make things easier. That's just a little tweak.
A little bit, man. The building blocks of learning. Well, beautiful people, man. Y'all know it's time for us to get up out of here, man. Really, brother Aaron, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Else, man, I want you guys to remember this, that it takes a village. It starts with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, beautiful people. Matter of fact, as you find out during COVID-19, this time that we have here today, we all we need. And thank God. I mean, seriously, thank God that that's more than enough. It's time to get up, to get out, and go get something. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
The new Black Wall Street. Thanks you for joining the show. We gave a lot of great tips, but it's time to go. Take the knowledge we shared, hope you and grow. We'll see you all there in the next episode of The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street.